Welcome back, everybody, to the Bochum Regional Championships 2023. My name is David Partington, and I'm once again joined by Lou and Josh Cromie. Oh my goodness, my words have just
You're stuck with me all day, and I'm not going to lie, I do not have the easiest name to say, so, you know, all kudos to you for having to put up with that all day.
Not at all. Like, it's just one of those things that, like, we've got all the Pokemon names and everything. We've got the Paradox Pokemon coming in. Just Paradox Pokemon kind of rolls.
That's already a tongue twister,
well.
for sure.
So, but I should be getting my colleague's name correctly. So, right, let's see by if day 2 I can get that.
You can never do as bad as Lee Provost did at the World Championships. Lee, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Call me by my husband's name.
Okay, awesome. Right. That does make me feel better. Thanks.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm here for. And we're also here for Pokemon action.
Yes, we are. Round 7. So, we've got coming up a Jack Clarke versus Jonas Weigel. And these are going to be a very interesting matchup as well.
I am excited for this.
Things have changed up. We do have another Torkoal, and that's not intentional. That is just something that keeps coming up now and again.
It's not a surprise anymore.
It's not, no. But we actually do have a Pelipper to kind of go against it this time.
Finally. I mean, Jack Clarke, who I think won Hearts over in Liverpool with that amazing win-in match, but unfortunately wasn't to be. He still bubbled out of that kind of top cut contention, but had a really, really interesting team. Had that Quaquaval, which I think captured the hearts of everyone, and it was so cool seeing it go to victory. You know, Jack did win that stream game, but has actually opted for something a little bit more standard. When I say standard, you know, it's still got a Pelipper on it, but it is the same 6 Pokemon that Gavin Michaels used to win the Oceania International Championships only a week ago.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, if you're going to be using that sort of team, it's probably going to be kind of still relevant and probably pretty good if it's been used in the finals. So I don't blame him for doing that and taking something, thinking about what it's kind of good against, and maybe kind of tweaking it for himself, which he maybe seems to have done today.
Yes, that's the thing. You know, you can take a team that's really solid and consistent, obviously has just won in international championships, but you need to adapt it to your own play style as well. There might be certain things that you'd be like, okay, I see why this trainer went for this, but actually in my style or something I'm more wary of, I want to make a few adjustments. On the opposing side, of course, Jonas Weigel is a regional champion, I believe 2-time regional champion, and he is my fellow Porygon Z enthusiast from 2017. But actually, you know, Porygon Z is no longer in the game, so he's had to pick a few different Pokemon, and he's certainly one for a few surprises.
Yes, he has, exactly. And he's gone for maybe similar kind of duck-type Pokemon as well. We've got this Iron Bundle, and then Armarouge could be a duck, if you so wanted to
Could be.
as well.
Anything could be a duck.
Anything could be a duck, as anything can be your favourite water type as well.
That is literally true. Because of Terra types.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got the Lily Cole duo as well. Also that Indeedee female and the Armarouge. So you've got another duo too. And then just a couple of Paradox Pokemon as well. So it looks like he's kind of put together 3 duos that seem to work well together. But obviously it's the combination of these 3 duos amongst each other that I think we're going to be seeing the exact way if that's going to work today.
Exactly, and it's kind of the flexibility of the team as well when you've got loads of different modes, and we'll dive into that a little bit more when the players are at the desk and we can have a talk about it. But let's just generally talk about Torkoal once again, because it's what we've done all day, but this time obviously it's paired up with a Lilligant, and it's one of those things. I've seen Torkoal obviously a lot today, as we all have, and I remember it so well back in sort of 2018 kind of time when it was paired up with that Lillicole, and it could go for those sleep powders in the sun. It's actually almost nice. I know a lot of people are going to be like, no, Lou, it's not nice. We do not want this to become a thing. But it is actually quite reminiscent to see them paired up once again.
It is lovely in a way, and especially for some of the cool utilities that Lilligant gets, which is why it gets used. Obviously, it's got that chlorophyll ability, but it's that after you that makes it really threatening, because it can just immediately boost that Torkoal to the speed it wants to be and outspeed pretty much everything and go for that hugely powerful eruption.
Exactly, and of course we are, you know, a big chunk of the way through the competition. The standings certainly do show us a little bit more about who is doing well. We have a lot of 6-0s. Enosh, who we saw earlier as well, is still 6-0. A few other players, obviously Guillermo Castillo, we've just seen Matt Maynard, who we were able to showcase earlier, Alex Soto as well, Aurelian Sula, again 6-0. This is a fantastic run for these players. Yeah,
exactly. It must be like, once they get on stream, it seems like that just kind of propels them forward a little bit further. So who knows what's going to happen with these two as well, because like those are all the 6-0s at the moment. There's hardly any that we haven't even covered yet. So it's chances are we're going to be covering pretty much most of them later on, potentially. But yeah, those 5-1s are definitely still closing in at the moment.
Yes.
And you can see Flavio, obviously, he lost the last match, but he's still 5-1. So he's still definitely in contention for day 2 as well. Michael Kelsch, Mateas, all really good players as well. So it's still a lot to play for with these 9 rounds.
Exactly. You want to finish day 1 at that X&2 record to try and get forward into that day 2 as well, and then battle it out through a further 5 Swiss rounds and things like that. As you can see as well, loads of 5 and 1 players, and I think this is the key part of the competition as well, where also us on the broadcast, we get to show you a nice mix of 6-0s, 5 and 1s as well, because at the end of the day, these are all top tier Pokemon players.
Look at all those flags as well, Lou. Like,
oh, it's amazing.
It's really cool to see. Like, we're obviously in Germany here, but it's quite like a general central location. I think it's quite fairly easy to get to, and that's really good too, because you've got so many people who've been able to come from around the country, around Europe, for what can be like a local regional here. So, and we've got representation from everywhere. We've got Sweden, Finland there, Netherlands, we've got everyone that we could want at the moment. So it's really, everyone's kind of in for it at the moment. So from the home crowd at the moment, there's still loads of people to root for.
And that's the thing, it's the home advantage that you sometimes want a little bit. And, we actually, I was able to have a little wander around again, look at juniors and seniors. And in seniors, there was a rematch from the Liverpool finals as well between Teddy and Alex. Teddy from Great Britain and Alex from Germany. Teddy won in Liverpool and he won again here in Bochum. So unfortunately, Alex wasn't able to bring the title home for Germany. But in the Masters division, there's still a lot of potential. Like you said, so many German players here, as well as loads of different nationalities. And that's one of the things I love about Pokemon, is the community, how widespread it is.
Exactly, me too. And even if it takes you across the world for a bit or back, and even then, like if you're not there face to face, there's so much of like an online community as well, and people kind of linking up and doing grassroots tournaments and stuff like that. There's so much like demand for like Pokemon, so people will just create that themselves as well, which is amazing. So hopefully we can bring the entertainment there with this upcoming match between Jack and Jonas.
I think you're right, though, and particularly over the last couple of years, for obvious reasons, the online community really did kind of rise up to that call and made all these amazing events for players to participate in. So no matter where you were, being at home or anything like that, you were still able to engage with your friends, engage in competitive Pokemon, and have something to kind of really kind of pour into and kind of have that little bit of escapism as well. And I think that's one of the amazing things, that even though we are now back at live events, you still have that online access, and it really is, here's some Pokemon, here's some more Pokemon for everyone.
Thanks, Lou. Yeah, I'll take some of that.
Yeah, take some Pokemon. It's great.
Yeah. Got my Murkrow here, so I'm
got my little Gastrodon.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy.
Yeah. So looking at this matchup at the moment here, we've got, it's definitely not something that we've covered a lot of. Like, we're so used to Roaring Moon, Great Task, and Moonga stuff going on. But yeah, so we've got Gavin Michaels, very similar team, but not exactly the same from last week. I think one of the notable differences, if you remember the 6 of Iron Hands, Palafin, Dragonite, Baxcalibur, Amoonguss, Pelipper, there's a safety goggles on the Baxcalibur this time instead of what I think was the Dragon Fang.
I think, yeah, I mean, this team obviously has just won a championship, and you have to make those adjustments. I think for me, the key thing is I'm looking forward to seeing a Palafin with a Pelipper. There's actually going to be rain in this matchup. I mean, I'm assuming it's coming. It's got to when there's a Torkoal on the opposing side. But I think that's the key thing as well, is looking at the cores that worked. And you were talking about how, these teams do have lots of different cores across the board. Jonas has his own cores going on with Lilycole and things like this. But then also Jack, running that tried and tested very successfully core as well. The other thing that I really like that, again, we've seen a lot of today, and you've spoken about as well, as the Iron Hands, having, Volt Switch to be able to reposition on the field, and that can be such a great help when you've got a Pokemon like Palafin that you want to get off the field, but then, you want it back in.
You definitely do. But going 0 to hero is what Palafin does best. And then, as we saw from Gavin last week, he just clicked that wave crash button into just every target that he could. And very luckily for him, he hit that slot so hard each time, and thanks to the partners Pokemon from such a strong team, there was no kind of threat being able to kind of be checked onto that Palafin either. So he played it really well here. And on Jack's end, being able to use that, his slightly different Baxcalibur here I really like, because the moves are also slightly switched up here too. Instead of the Icicle Crash, which Gavin had, he's got the Swords Dance as well. So he's still got the Glaive Rush and the Ice Shard, but it seems to be much more of a setup Pokemon here, and that makes it a lot safer with the safety goggles too, because you just don't care about the Amoonguss.
And you can take a closer look at the accolades of these players as well. Jonas, like I mentioned earlier, has won Bilbao Special Event and also the Bremen Regional Championships. Across to 2022 as well, Lille Regionals top 16, as well as Bremen wasn't able to regain the title, but still got in top 16. Whereas on the flip side, Jack, a relatively newer player to competitive Pokemon, in the sense that, the main accolade there, 2022 World's Day 2 competitor, that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, Jack's a good friend of mine as well, so I'm really happy to see him doing well. Like on kind of back-to-back Liverpool and here, doing like he's so consistent. Like he had a lot of like experience doing lots of online tournaments and kind of singles and stuff, and he only recently got into doubles, but he still has that head full of VGC knowledge and just the way to play the game. So as soon as he applied it to doubles, he just really took off. So, and he's still like pretty young into it as well. So he's someone who to really look out for, I think.
Definitely, and that fresh kind of experience and perspective can actually really make you a formidable Pokemon player, particularly early on in the season. Taking a closer look at the team as well, you can see that Palafin once again with the Pelipper, but the key one for me is that Baxcalibur. Again, it's a Pokemon that I think has now come out in quite a lot of dominance. It's won a lot of things. It's won some regionals as well. And the key thing for me is that Swords Dance, because you think it can already hit hard with something like a Glaive Rush, but Swords Dance will guarantee those knockouts.
Exactly, and we saw how effective that was in the previous games that we had on stream today. It wasn't a Baxcalibur, but it was having that threat of, say, a Dragon Dance or a Swords Dance in like the King Gambits that we've seen too, where like if you're going to protect in front of it, sure, fine, but I could get a Swords Dance off just any time. So you can see how there's a lot of offense on here, on like pretty much all the Pokemon, maybe bar Amoonguss. But setup, I think, is something that has been kind of left by the wayside a little bit. So when it gets brought back, like in this Baxcalibur, I think it's going to be extra threatening.
Yes, and of course, again, that makes a few adjustments from Gavin Michael's team as well. You know, the Baxcalibur, you've already mentioned that this one is running the safety goggles over Dragonfang. But on, you know, Gavin's as well, there was that Icicle Crash. And on Jax, we can see that Swords Dance that we just spoke about. So these little adjustments, maybe switching things out, you know, dropping the Dragon Fang and then having to make sure that you've got some offensive pressure with the Swords Dance, but then the safety goggles in an era of sleep powders when you've got a Lilligant, or of course more notably Spore on a Amoonguss, I think is a really great choice.
And now looking at Jonas's team here, as you can see, you've got the duos, you've got the Lilycol at the top, and then you've got Armarouge and DD, and then you've got the Fluttermane Iron Bundle. So I want to talk about just the bottom duo there, actually, has been also quite a good go-to just lead that a lot of players have to kind of have an answer for. Because Iron Bundle obviously naturally outspeeds Fluttermane just a little bit, and so you're able to hit Icy Wind into something that's already pretty fast, and especially with that booster energy that likely boosts the speed, it allows Fluttermane to just do whatever it wants. And with Fairy and Ghost coverage, it hits pretty much everything.
I love that middle combination as well. Armarouge and DD, the classic Trick Room duo. You can go for that Follow Me Trick Room and get it set up, and that's something that obviously Torkoal can benefit from. But as you mentioned earlier, Torkoal doesn't necessarily need to be in Trick Room if it's paired up with that Lilligant. Its Chlorophyll ability is going to double its speed. It's then very, very fast, and it can go for that after you, allowing the normally relatively slow Torkoal to go for a very powerful Eruption very early on.
Something that's been really consistent over like Series 1 and Series 2 is this Indeedee. This is like the go-to Indeedee, it seems like, for like anybody who's using it. It's always the Follow Me and the Helping Hand, and it is often the Dazzling Gleam that is the move of choice here rather than something like a Psychic, because it's often paired with already another Psychic type which can do the job of the Psychic moves. So being able to get off the Fairy coverage is really useful, especially when you have that Terrestrialization option where you can Terrestrialize into the Fairy type, which defensive-wise works kind of completely perfectly with Psychic and Normal, because you suddenly take those Dark type attacks really well.
As well as obviously getting the boost on Dazzling Gleam. So it does allow you lots of flexibility, and as well, like you said, it's quite a standard Indeedee set. Running that Psychic Seed as well, we've seen time and time again, because obviously Psychic Surge sets a Psychic Terrain, and then your Psychic Seed, that's a lot of Psychics in one sentence, allows you to get that special defense boost as well.
And now the Torkoal as well, as we were comparing Torkoals throughout the entire day today, it's more similar to like the hard Trick Room that we saw from Alex Toto as well. That Eruption, Flamethrower, Earth Power, Clear Smog with the Charcoal, I think it's pretty much the same as what we kind of saw earlier too. So as you can see, it's more a Torkoal geared towards get up Trick Room, sweep with Torkoal, rather than the Yawn kind of Helping Hand sort of stuff that we saw before. But it is still able to kind of be that that kind of support to Iron Bundle and Fluttermane as well. Just to the Fluttermane because of the Protosynthesis.
Yes, I mean, the Luxray doesn't look too happy to be here, but we certainly are. Always lovely to see the plushies on the desk as well that our trainers have opted to bring for that little bit of support. You can see both these trainers as well. They're clearly in team preview at this point. They've swapped their team sheets. They are ready to go, and it's not even team preview. It's leads. Turn zeros here. Dragonite and Baxcalibur out on the field for Jack, and Jonas has gone for the Fluttermane and Iron Bundle.
Okay, double dragon lead for Jack, which is really cool. So obviously going to be a little bit scared by the fairy moves from that Fluttermane. So potentially Jack was maybe predicting, say, the Lily Cole here at the moment, because Baxcala would be incredible into that with that safety goggles and that ice coverage. And he's probably got Pelipper in the back to be able to cancel out any of the rain. So I like Jonas's lead here. He doesn't he knows the weather wall's probably not going to be in his favour here with the rain, because even if you've got the sun up, the water's still going to do a lot of damage. So I like this lead here at the moment from Jonas. The Dragonite at the moment is really cool, though. It doesn't have any setup, but it is threatening with the Ice Spinner, so any sort of Indeedee that might come in, you can get rid of that as well. But the Baxcalibur, I think, is in a decently positioned, especially if it's terrestrialized into the Poison type.
There we go. It is going to be the Poison type Baxcalibur here. Just removing that Dragon typing. Of course, Poison typing going to be able to resist those Fairy type attacks as well that the Baxcalibur would fall victim to. You can see Iron Bundle actually just going straight for a Protect here. Doesn't want to go for any Ice moves either in the face of this Dragonite. That would have been some nice damage. And actually, defensive plays all round for our Pokemon here on Jonas's side. Just maybe watching to see what Jack is going to do. Dragonite also wants to join the party a little bit.
It does protect. Is this a Swords Dance? No, not quite. Oh, that would have been incredible.
That would have been awesome.
But it is a Glaive Rush, so Jonas has made a really good play there, because now Glaive Rush has been used. So Baxcalibur is now going to be taking double damage from whatever move is kind of coming out next. So it kind of puts him in a defensive position at the moment. Obviously, he can protect out of that, but it definitely puts Jack on the back foot a little bit, especially as now he's revealed his terrestrialization. He can't change that anymore, and Jonas still has that option in the back.
I think that's the thing, though, Baxcalibur, we've seen it time again when it goes for that Glaive Rush and then always protects on the next turn, like you said, to reset the kind of deficit it gets from it. So then it almost is like a really easy Protect for Jonas to read into. So if you're Jack, do you go for that Protect, or do you actually just go on the offensive and call the bluff on Jonas's side? The Extreme Speed will go down into that opposing Iron Bundle, do a significant chunk of damage. Dragonite's going to have to take a Freeze Drive for its troubles, so a huge chunk of damage, particularly when Fluttermane follows up with the Moonblast. Two super effective moves into Dragonite. It is down and out in this game one. All eyes then fall on this Baxcalibur that has not gone for a Protect, goes for the Glaive Rush into that opposing Iron Bundle and will get a knockout in return.
Yeah, big knockout there. So Jack made a good call there not to go straight on for the Protect on that Baxcalibur, which was pretty obvious. But Dragonite here showing the multi-scale that really good use there. If it wasn't that, it would have probably gone down to the one shot, and Baxcalibur would have had to take another hit. So showing off the kind of the different abilities that Dragonite has here. Dragonite is also interesting. In like previous formats, you usually only either wanted multi-scale or inner focus, depending on the format. But here, you've definitely seen both kind of being used. We've seen Life Orb inner focus, and here we've got multi-scale Lumberry. So multi-scale really came in clutch there. Now, interestingly, Baxcalibur, before on Gavin's team, having the Dragon Fang meant that the Glaive Rush was basically 100% chance of the time to KO an opposing Iron Bundle. So at the moment, it had to have that chip to be able to do that, which Jack luckily was able to do thanks to that extreme speed. But now Indeedee comes onto the field.
Yep, Indeedee comes onto the field and sets that Psychic Terrain as well. Going to get the special defense boost due to its Psychic Seed. And now you're in the situation where Indeedee can provide a little bit of redirection support with something like a Follow Me to that Fluttermane. That, I think if you're Jonas at this point, you're going to want to try and deal with that Pelipper, break its Focus Sash, possibly with something like a Dazzling Gleam at this point, because then you can also, the Baxcalibur is the issue, but even if you could just do a little bit of chip on that, maybe something in the back for Jonas can deal with the Baxcalibur later on.
Yeah, I like it. But Baxcalibur actually is going to be switching out here, so which makes a lot of sense. Like you want to preserve it for maybe a little bit later on. There's a Moongus is the swift switch in here, but Moonblast is not targeting a slot and it hits into the Pelipper. Does so much damage. Huge
damage. Pelipper going to retaliate with a Hurricane. That Psychic Seed really helping out, as Indeedee does go for the Trick Room here. This is the perfect time for Jack to have switched in that Amoonguss. Not only would it have been, again, a perfect Pokemon to take a Dazzling Gleam, but Trick Room is now up. This is Amoongus's playground.
I love that, yeah. So Jonas kind of predicting maybe like the Tailwind to come out from the Pelipper here, but Jack kind of reads that again instead, and then like predicts the Trick Room from him predicting the Tailwind, and gets the Zamukas in right at the critical moment he should have. And this is not Safety Goggles Indeedee, so Spore is pretty free into that slot. It's not Safety Goggles on the Fluttermane either, so it can be a Spore into that slot. There's no Terra Grass that I can see either, so Jack's put himself in an excellent position.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can always go for the redirection and draw in that Spore and allow Fluttermane to maybe try and get a KO with something like the Dazzling Gleam, remove the Pelipper from the field. But that, of course, will then allow Jack the switch back into Baxcalibur. The Fluttermane is going to leave the field, however, going, Trick Room is not the place I want to be. Let's bring in Armarouge, a Pokemon that is a little bit better versed in this Trick Room environment. But, of course, the switch-in is never safe. Indeedee's going to go for that Follow Me, draw in all of the single-target type attacks that Jack may go for. Spore is the first one. Indeedee's going to be taking a little bit of a nap. But I wonder what Pelipper's gone for.
Yeah, this Pelipper, if it's a water move, could be into that Armarouge. Is going to be doing a huge amount of damage. This is the Hydro Pump, but it is only 80% accurate, so it is going to miss. However, this might not be the worst thing for Jack, to be honest, because especially if that Hydro Pump got the KO in the Indeedee, that enables Jonas to kind of get his Fluttermane for kind of free. And at the moment, Indeedee's just gone to sleep, so it's kind of a bit of a dud slot at the moment, because it's guaranteed to take a sleep turn. So it's kind of a 2v1 situation going into this turn. So if anything, I think Jack wants to keep the Indeedee on the field at the moment, because now he can safely target into the Armarouge, kind of cover it with a Spore if he so wanted to, and then kind of switch his other Pokemon out around into the position that he wants. But I think Jonas is going for this Terrestrialization here, and it is that Grass type.
Yeah, that certainly means that Armarouge will take those Hydro Pumps much better, particularly as, like you said, Indeedee is asleep. It cannot redirect them into its slot. So Armarouge looking ready to play here, but you have to, of course, watch out for a potential Hurricane if that's something that Jack has maybe read into. He's been making lots of great reads in this game one so far. Amoonguss going to be going for the Protect, though. Doesn't want to fall victim to anything coming out from this opposing Armarouge. Something like an Expanding Force with the Psychic Train would hit both of Jack's Pokemon, so actually just going straight away for a Protect on both sides, so that this move that and the Psychic Train will hit both isn't going to be able to get a knockout.
Yeah, not quite yet. So that would have been a pretty powerful Pokemon move to use at the moment. And Pelipper's not got that Wide Guard, which we often saw it use in Series 1, so which is kind of petered out at the moment. No pun intended. But yeah, Trickroom's still up at the moment, so Amoonguss is still in a decent position to potentially dish out some damage. So I think Jack may be kind of predicting maybe a little bit of a defensive play from Jonas here. So with the Grassy Terrestrialization now up, you can kind of now play around this a little bit more. Here, you could theoretically Pollen Puff into, say, the Indeedee, and that's going to do decent damage. You can try and pick that off. It kind of depends on the speed tiers really around here, because Armarouge is kind of a middling kind of speed tier amongst other Pokemon, so you can either make it really slow or fast depending on how you want to do it. And with the Icy Wind option on Jonas's end, it could be quite speedy as well. So let's see what happens.
Yep, let's go into it. It is going to be the Pollen Puff from Amoonguss. It's going to go actually into the Armarouge, do about 1/3 of damage to it. Of course, you can't put it to sleep now. It is Grass Terror, and it is able to retaliate with that Expanding Force. It gets a double KO against both of Jack's Pokemon. Amazing retaliation from this Armarouge.
Yeah, so the perfect Terrestrialization that we could have asked for Jonas here, and really in the element as it has been, because it's got Trick Room, that's where it wants to be. The Baxcalibur is now going to come back in for Jack, but it is still standing down against this very powerful Armarouge with the Psychic Terrain still up. He probably wants to start to protect, to maybe stall a little bit of out, but Jonas even still then has the ability to switch out his Indeedee and then switch it back in as well, so to reset the Psychic Terrain if it still does go down, and therefore Ice Shard is even an option, so you have to be Glaive Rushing, and then you're making yourself weaker, so Jack definitely has an uphill battle here.
Oh, definitely, and you're kind of sitting at the difficult situation where you know as well that there is a Fluttermane in the back that isn't going to worry about any Dragon-type moves coming its way. Indeedee's awake, though. It's back in the action. Is able to go for some redirection as Armarouge just follows up with a Nulla Expanding Force here, knowing that the Baxcalibur only has single-target type attacks, so it's going to be able to just provide that support with the Indeedee. Twisted Dimensions have returned to normal, though. Trick Room is no more, but you're almost in the position where the Armarouge could just set it up again.
Yeah, exactly. You've only got single target attacks here, and Indeedee can do what Indeedee does best, and just follow me away all those attacks all day long, and Armarouge can set more things up. But he does have Fluttermane in the back, does Jonas, so he's able to bring that in fairly safely, and with a Shadow Ball and probably an Expanding Force, it should probably be enough. Again, it's the speed tiers here. Does Jonas want it up, because Baxcalibur again has a middling speed tier. You can run it fast, you can run it bulky, so it really depends. So we're yet to see how this kind of plays out now. So with Trick Room now gone, it's Baxcalibur moving first.
Yep, able to get the knockout and the Indeedee as well. That supportive measure has now left the field, so we know that the Fluttermane is going to join back, which I think is a reason why Trick Room is definitely not the play, particularly when Armarouge is like, it's all right, I got this. I got the knockout on the opposing Baxcalibur, and Jonas able to take this, this first game in a very commanding fashion.
Yeah, GG's to Jonas there. That was a good, well-played set, exactly. I think he really called the lead, I think.
Yes.
Leading those fast offensive Pokemon into Jack's double dragon lead, which is not ideal without any kind of speed control either. Yes, he got the KO on the Fluttermane, but he kind of missed an opportunity to kind of get an attack off into the right slot or get a Swords Dance up or something. And that's the problem, right? If you're running Ice Shard only rather than something like Icicle Crash, your only big offensive option is Glaive Rush, which has a really big drawback to using it.
Yeah, and I really have to credit the way Jonas played that. You know, like you said, going for that faster mode, you know, early doors with the Iron Bundle and the Fluttermane, but then being able to have that flexibility to be like, right, I've got my knockout here that was a critical one, and now I can set up the Trick Room and let my Arm Rouge come in and kind of clean up the rest of the match. And having that flexibility does mean that Jack constantly is forced to adapt. Again, Jack can't necessarily utilize his own strategy in a match because he's constantly being forced to adjust to whatever Jonas is bringing onto the field. And when you've got a team that starts off so fast and quick and then suddenly becomes a little bit more slow, it's very difficult to get the ball position right. My question, though, is this a moment for Palafin?
I feel like it could be, you know, because even though you've got the Indeedee there, you do have the opportunity to get rid of that Psychic Surge so you can free up Palafin to do those Jet Punches because of the Ice Spinner on the Dragonite. And that's something that we could definitely see used here because it's also super effective on the Lilligant if that ends up getting brought too. So, but even without that, Palafin's Wave Crashes do so much damage. Like, if you think about what Jonas kind of brought, the Fluttermane, yes, is Sash, but then you can hit that with anything, followed up from there. It should one-shot the Arm Rouge, it should one-shot the Indeedee once the rain is up, and even though Fluttermane resists, it will take a huge amount of damage from it. And to be honest, Jonas probably doesn't want to bring the Torkoal even if the Palafin gets brought, because it's then not doing a whole lot. It's probably there to try and stop the rain a little bit, but then it's not going to do a whole lot back based on the composition of Jack's team.
I mean, you know, we saw Jack just bring the Pelipper, but no Palafin to this match. So we'll see if there's any adjustments. It's going to be a Moongus and Dragonite coming out of the blocks, though, for Jack. And on the opposing side, sticking with that fast defensive lead, Jonas has gone for the Iron Bundle and the Fluttermane.
I like this switch up from Jack here because Amoonguss can be bulky enough here to kind of, especially with the Citrus Berry, take a freeze drive from Iron Bundle and then live another attack from Fluttermane. So you can kind of safely Rage Powder here and then do whatever you like with Dragonite. So I really do like the switch up, and we've often seen Amoonguss plus something like, say, a Roaring Moon is often a really good lead into stuff too, because it gives you a little bit of a fast option that does the damage and then that slower kind of more bulky option. And obviously you also have the play of like, all right, if they're going to target the Dragonite that does the damage, I could just protect and then I just get a Spore off somewhere.
Yep, that's very true. And you can see here, Jack is hovering over that Terrestrialize button that's currently active on that flying type. But it looks like the clock is ticking down and you really have to make your choices. It is going to be locked in, however, so we do get an insight into Jack's Terra item of choice.
Yeah, so another Terrestrialization turn 1 for Jack, but this time it's his other dragon that is on his T-shirt as well. So it is that Terra Flying Dragonite, which seems to be the main Terra that we've been seeing on any of the Dragonites here on stream at the moment, because it does give it that access to that really reliable Terra Blast.
Yeah, but still has to work around anything icy coming out from this Iron Bundle, but in this turn it's just going to be a protector piece on Jonas's side. Again, just possibly scouting out exactly what Jack wants to do, which Terra to lock into, and then Jonas can adjust his gameplay depending on what he sees across the field. I do like the Terra on here though, because like you said, you can apply a lot of pressure with something like that Terra Blast, as well as, you know, dropping your 4 times weakness to ice. It's now just only 2 times.
Yeah, and now you're not also weak to the fairy moves from the Fluttermane as well.
True.
So defensively, it's a really good option for the Dragonite at the moment. And it also makes sure that you've got that reliable fly move that hits literally everything that Jonas kind of brought last time. It still doesn't make it safe for Jonas, though, because you either need to target into the Amoonguss, which may not even like KO now after the Citrus Berry, and then a Spore can still come off. But there's a freeze!
Oh, Amoonguss is absolutely frozen solid. It is going to be able to eat its berry with difficulty due to the freeze. However, it may now be locked in to not be able to move this turn. Fluttermane is able to go for the Shadow Ball, following up into this Amoonguss. It survives on 71 HP as Dragonite can go for this Terra Blast. It's been not targeted this turn. Poor Amoonguss had to take all of that damage, and Iron Bundle is going to take 2/3 from that Terra Blast. Amoonguss goes out, however. It is a perseverant little mushroom, and it's able to go for that Spore.
Oh, what a turn of events. Okay, I got a little bit of goosebumps here, if anyone can see. Like that, Amoonguss was so clutch getting that Spore off. Especially in this Fluttermane, which is Focus Ash as well. So it's always going to be able to take 1 hit from something as well. So being able to put that to sleep is absolutely huge. thanks to Dragonite being multi-scale here, even though it is still weak to ice, it's still not take a lot. It's not going to take a lot of damage as well. So Jack's put himself in a decent position here. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe preserve the Amoonguss here, because it does have that regenerator ability. You can switch it out, get a little bit more healthy, and manage to get yourself something in that you might want to use a little bit later. Maybe say that Pelipper, because you probably, especially versus this sort of stuff, you may want to start getting up that Tailwind. And even if Armarouge starts to come in and starts doing Trick Room things, then at least you then threaten with powerful water moves.
I think Amoonguss has definitely earned itself a little regeneration here from waking up from that thawed frozenness, you know what I'm trying to say. Iron Bundle anyway, just going straight for a Protect, as Fluttermane is, of course, going to have to take a turn of sleep here, leaving itself very vulnerable to anything this Dragonite wants to go for. It is going to go for that Terra Blast, however, and it is going to connect down onto that Fluttermane, break its Focus Sash, as you mentioned, so now it's going to be susceptible to anything coming out from either Iron Hands or Dragonite in the next turn. Of course, Iron Hands, we've seen, you know, use things like Fake Out. You can't do that into Fluttermane because it is the Ghost type, but that's something that Iron Bundle has to watch out for.
Yeah, so Jonas might have the Indeedee in the back at the moment, which would definitely put any stop to the fake-out shenanigans that Iron Hands is so well known for, and therefore Iron Bundle would be able to get some sort of attack off. However, I do wonder whether it's in extreme speed range, that Fluttermane. It's probably says decent defense, so it might not, and it depends probably on how much Jack knows about the training of his own Dragonite. But Indeedee does come in here.
Yeah, Indeedee here to stop any, you know, priority stuff going down on the field. It's, of course, going to get that special defense boost as well. It doesn't really need that in the face of two physical attackers, but always good to have for who knows what later. Dragonite just going to go for the Protect, though. Doesn't want to take any Ice Type moves from this opposing Iron Bundle that is ready to get some revenge. It goes for the Freeze Dry into the Protect, so now Iron Hand's in a great position to try and deal with this Iron Bundle. Goes for that Volt Switch, will get the knockout, and once again allows Jack the mobility to bring in a Pokemon from the back and reposition that board a little bit more. Yeah,
I love that Volt Switch from Jack. That's something that Gavin used to great success last week. So it enables him to get something in that he might prefer at the moment. So Amoonguss has obviously gained a little bit of health. He could bring that back in again and then switch it yet again back out, and then you're almost at full HP, and then you get Iron Hands back in for yet another kind of fake-out turn. And that gives you the opportunity to potentially this turn with Dragonite, in anticipation of that, go for an Ice Spinner to get rid of the Psychic Terrain now that the Indeedee's on the field. And then so that you can then use the Fake Out for the Iron Hands the following turn. It's something that could give it a little bit of a leg up, especially versus an Armarouge, which you really want to kind of put a stop to. Yeah, that's the thing. Definitely towards the end game when Psychic Terrain's gone, or you can get rid of it with that Ice Spinner on that Dragonite. So there's lots of different flexible choices that Jack has utility for. It's going to be actually the weather mode he's opted for, though. Going to bring the rain onto the field with Pelipper's Drizzle ability. And now Pelipper again in a position where it can target Pokemon like that Armarouge if it wants to come in from the back. So the Fluttermane is in the back for Jonas at the moment, but it has taken one turn sleep, so it is a potential to wake up next turn, but it's unlikely to. So Jonas is definitely kind of thinking, right, should I bring something that's going to be reliably going to be doing something, which is probably going to be the Armarouge, or shall I bring in the Fluttermane that's a little bit more risky? But it is the Armarouge this time, so again, we're going to see these speed interactions here a little bit more. I don't think we've seen Dragonite versus Armarouge yet, or how fast this Armarouge is either, too. But the Indeedee is on the field at the moment, and it's not asleep like last time, so it is able to kind of really help out versus all the single target attacks that Jack has at the moment. Yeah, if you're Jack, I think you really want to get rid of that Indeedee quick, because you can hit the Armarouge for either a Hydro Pump, or if it wants to go for Terra Grass again, you can always go for that Hurricane. And the redirection is going to be really frustrating to deal with. Pelipper actually just going straight onto that Indeedee, goes for that Hurricane, does a little bit of damage, no confusion coming into play, but the critical thing is Dragonite goes for that Ice Spinner, again, does a little bit of damage, but goodbye Psychic Terrain, it disappears from the field. Amazing play by Jack, that absolutely read the Protect there. Like from Jack's perspective there, you know, Jonas wants to protect his Armarouge, so he's either going to protect it, and then therefore Indeedee is open, or he's going to use the Follow Me, and therefore your attack's going to Indeedee. So I like that play from Jack there. You might as well just attack the Indeedee here, especially as the Indeedee itself has no Trick Room. So that really ended up swinging the momentum a bit there and just got some free damage off. Yes, you can see the double protect has indeed failed on the Armarouge. Indeed, he's going to go for the Dazzling Gleam, though, break the multi-scale on that Dragonite, leave it a little bit more vulnerable going forward. But of course, Dragonite's able to go straight away for this Terra Blast into the Armarouge. Does a huge chunk of damage. If that had Terra'd, it would be a knockout. But you don't need to Terra when you can get the double into Armarouge, and it is gone. Absolutely gone, yeah. A great double target there for Jack, and just really showing how, Generation 1 Pokemon is still pretty good at the moment. And if anything, this is Dragonite's, time to shine, literally, at the moment. It's really cool to see it, really being used at the moment, despite its kind of slightly lower speed, its abilities and also its coverage it's got, especially in that new ice spinner move we've got this generation, is really cool to see.
Yeah, really nice to see that showcased well here also. And, you know, Jack's got all 4 remaining Pokemon at play here against Jonas's remaining 2. And, of course, that Fluttermane is not only not very healthy, but also fast asleep, so it's not going to be necessarily the most beneficial at this point in time. Indeed, he can obviously redirect and move around, something maybe like another Hurricane coming out from the Pelipper. But honestly, if you're Jack, you could almost risk going for something like the Hydro Pump here. Dazzling Gleam going first, once again, just doing a little bit of chip damage, as Dragonite can follow up with that Terra Blast, connecting down onto the opposing Indeedee and removing it from the fray. As long as this Pelipper has gone for the Hurricane here, it's going to seal up game 2 for Jack.
Are we about to go into a game 3, Lou?
It's happening.
Like, it's happening.
It's about time.
I feel like it's been 2 games every single stream, and now we're actually getting a 3rd game here. Bit of a swing of momentum finally, so no longer kind of down to matchups right now. And that was kind of the same similar sort of 4 Pokemon that we saw, but Jack made a really crucial switch up there, getting his Amogus in and getting Baxcalibur out.
See, I love a game 3 because the whole mentality as a player changes at this point. If you won game 1, you can go into game 2 that little bit confident. I'm not saying, you know, you can risk things, but you can afford to play a little bit more risky. Whereas if you're that 1 game down, you really have to, like, you know, I don't want to say overthink, but overthink everything at that point, because if you lose that game, you've lost the entire set. But when it comes down to this 1-1, the momentum has switched. You know, you won game 1, but you've lost game 2, so now what do you do going into this game 3? Do you play with what won you your game, or do you shake things up completely into that game 3?
Yeah, Jonas must be thinking, should I bring maybe something that deals a little bit better with Amogus at the moment? Because obviously Torkoal deals a lot of damage to it, and Lilligant is immune to the spores. Neither of which has been kind of bringing at the moment, which understandably into kind of a Pelipper matchup, which Jack's brought every game so far. But maybe do you, like, say, maybe just bring the Lilligant, for instance, kind of maybe compare it with something else. It's got that wide lens, which I've just kind of noticed, which is kind of cool, which means your sleep powers are going to be a little bit reliable. And that's something that could, like, really put a stop to a lot of the other Pokemon. So it's whether, like, Jonas is kind of comfortable with his game plan, but at the moment, as we can see, Jack's Amogus being that Citrus Berry and so bulky, versus that Fluttermane and Iron Bundle, it can just guaranteed live any double up of attacks and then just get something off. So I think Jonas needs to kind of switch something up at the moment here, and I think it's on Jack to be able to kind of guess what that might be.
I mean, Jack's been making some fantastic reads in this set so far, so, you know, I don't have any kind of hesitation that he's going to be able to make some good adjustments going into game 3. And you're right as well, you know, the Torkoal's going to be a little hesitant, as Pelipper's been in the back for Jack a lot as well, and doesn't want to necessarily come out front and center, but we're going to see changes galore. It's going to be Indeedee Armarouge strongly out in front here for Jonas, and it's going to be Dragonite and Iron Hands for Jack. You've got to watch out for that Ice Spinner.
Yes, exactly. And so Jack's led with this Dragonite 3 out of 3 games at the moment. And you can see why, just in case of this lead, because you do have that Ice Spinner now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Jonas maybe switch out the Indeedee, just kind of to kind of see that kind of coming at the moment. But you are then kind of putting yourself at risk of, say, an Iron Hands and Dragonite double up. But that's the thing about open team sheets, you know, like, Jack knows that the Armarouge has Protect here. So it's never kind of safe to be able to do that, but a double up into the Indeedee is safe because there is no Protect. So we might see that here at the moment, but that would mean Armarouge could get a huge expanding force off, so you do need to respect it here. So there's so much that can happen this turn.
I mean, you called it. Indeedee's left the field. We've got Torkoal here. Dragonite is going to go for that Ice Spinner. Is going to remove that Psychic Terrain, so Expanding Force will now become a single target move once again. Cheeky critical hit as well for style points. It's not very effective going into the Torkoal, but the Dragonite is definitely trying its best. Iron Hands able to follow up with a close combat, but the naturally defensive Torkoal able to take that really well, and Iron Hands now a little bit more exposed with its special defense and defense lowered. Armarouge, however, not going on offensive. Clicks Trick Room. Torkoal's on the field. This is a great position for Jonas.
Yeah, amazing play, actually. Like, so I did not expect him to bring the Torkoal, honestly. But like, it ended up being like the perfect switch in at the moment. It takes both of those hits really nicely. Trick Room goes up, so Torkoal's looking pretty threatening at the moment. Obviously, the HP is pretty low to be using Eruption at the moment, so but it's still got Flamethrower to be able to do what it needs to do. Iron Hands is a little bit less bulky on the special defensive side, but with that Assault Vest, it's still going to be able to take the hits pretty well. But if Jack does have the Pelipper in the back, it's still looking okay, especially if the Indeedee doesn't also switch in this turn.
Love to see this. I mean, this is prime time for Pelipper to join the battle. Indeedee is coming in. You're reading this Indeedee left, right, and center here, and is able to join the field, reset that terrain, but I think critically keep the Torkoal in the back to bring the sun later, because guess what? Pelipper's going to join the field, trying to overwrite that weather, bring the rain so that, you know, Eruption and Flamethrower and things like this are not going to be dealing as much damage. But Jonas has called this perfectly, and guess what? Torkoal can rejoin the battle next turn.
Yeah, Expanding Force is absolutely massive here. There's no Dark types kind of to speak of on Jack's end to be able to take any sort of these hits. No Steel types either. So Psychic goes just super hard into Jack's team, unfortunately. But Jack does kind of call the switch in here a little bit, so it does get the Ice Spinner off. So the Psychic Terrain is going to go, the weirdness is gone, which means Dragonite is going to definitely be able to take a few more hits, especially if we see a Terrestrialization into the Flying type. It means it can take the Dazzling Gleam from the Indeedee a little bit better. So although he's lost a little bit of momentum here, the Torkoal is now in the back for Jonas. He has the potential to change the weather yet again. It's still looking okay for Jack, but Jonas can do a big play here. He can, like, say, switch into Torkoal yet again, Armor Cannon to the Dragonite as it Terrestrializes into the Flying type and would get a one-hit KO. So does Jack Terrestrialize here?
That is indeed the question. I mean, we saw the Ice Spinner come out from the Dragonite, a little too late for that Pelipper. It had to take a huge chunk of damage from that Expanding Force, as well as Dragonite obviously having its multi-scale broken, so it is going to be a little bit more vulnerable to something like a Dazzling Gleam. But Dragonite's actually going to leave the field here, allow Pelipper to try and hold down the fort on its own. As Iron Hands is able to join without any Psychic Terrain, you have the Fake Out potential on this next turn. Armarouge does indeed target that Iron Hand switch, and it still does a huge chunk of damage. It is super effective, does over 50%, and that Life Orb, I think, really coming in clutch to deal that additional damage. To add insult to injury, Dazzling Gleam's going to follow up, chip away Iron Hands even more, and critically get the KO on that Pelipper.
Yeah, okay, so Iron Hands does take a lot for its troubles on the way in, but with the weirdness gone, Fake Out is now in play. And yeah, we can see Jack hovering over Amoonguss here, rightly so, as well as Trick Room is up. So Spore is able to kind of go freely into the Indeedee slot right now. And there's probably no Lilligant in the back, I believe. So a Spore can just completely go off there. The question is, we've not seen the interaction of speed between Iron Hands and Armarouge. I mean, Iron Hands is not on a Trick Room team, so it might be a little bit on the speedier side, or maybe not trained to be the absolute slowest it can be. But and Trick Room is up, though, but Armarouge has slightly naturally higher speed, so it's probably on the training of both of these Pokemon yet again. Does the Iron Hands actually under speed or not? And that would be quite crucial for like the later turn here after potentially this likely Fake Out turn here.
And in contrast to games 1 and 2, Jack hasn't used Terra yet, and neither has Jonas. So you still have that in the mix to contend with if Armarouge maybe wants to go for something like that Grass Terra. We're just going to see Amoonguss, however, just switch straight on for a Protected. Doesn't want to take any unnecessary damage, allowing Indeedee to go for this Follow Me. Going to redirect in the attack that the Iron Hands has locked into, protecting Armarouge. It's going to go for that Expanding Force. It does actually call it onto the Iron Hands, so Iron Hands will be KO'd. Unfortunate there that the Amoonguss isn't in a position to have tried to go for a Spore or even try and Rage Powder remove, and it's going to be single target. Yes, the Amoonguss is probably going to go down at that point, but the Iron Hands could have maybe got off some good damage here. Yeah,
really unfortunate turn for Jack there, and just really well called by Jonas there. Nice safe Follow Me, as indeed he does best, and then yeah, the single target Expanding Force just forced into the not so expanded, but yeah, just into the Iron Hands and just got the KO. So it's exactly what he wanted at the moment, and he's still, I think, got all 4 Pokemon alive. Indeed, he's still in the back as well, and with the Pelipper gone as well, Jonas can bring that in, and then the Sun is then here to stay, and that is going to boost up Armarouge's attacks even more so. And then, in case he didn't want to attack it with Psychic moves into the Amoonguss, he can hit with the Fire moves, and that's especially key because the Amoonguss on Jack's side, I believe, is Terrestrialization into the Steel, so it's always weak to Fire no matter what it does.
That's a great observation. Fire is going to reign supreme. As we've mentioned, the Pelipper is gone. Torkoal's now back on the field, so the Sun is in the sky. Those Fire-type moves are going to be boosted by 50%. We're finally going to see a Terrestrialization from Jack here. It's going to be on that Dragonite once again, flying a Terra-type. It has had its multi-scale broken, however, so it's going to be a little bit more vulnerable, but Jack really does need to get every little bit of damage here to try and find a way back into the match. Amoonguss this time does go for the Spore. It's able to find its mark down onto the opposing Torkoal, so it's not going to be able to deal out any Fire-type moves, but I think the key thing here is the Armor Cannon, which is a Fire-type move from the Armarouge, is still going to be able to go off here. Gets rid of that Amoonguss. One shot. Goodbye.
Yeah, I do love that animation of the Armor Cannon. Excellent, cool move from Armarouge, and it does get the absolute one shot, which we've seen a lot of Amoonguss kind of get, and I think for a lot of players that is a very satisfying one shot to get. Dragonite, last Pokemon on the field here, is going to go for that last stick Terra Blast into the Armarouge, and does get the knockout just as Torkoal falls to sleep. So it's not looking great for Jack, but he does have his Terrestrialized Dragonite, which has been very useful for him in the previous games. Let's see if he can use it a little bit more.
Yeah, very nice kind of revenge that Dragonite was able to get for the Amoonguss. But like you've mentioned, it's a bit of an uphill struggle for the Dragonite. You've got Obviously, the Indeedee that you've got to contend with is already it's got to come back in at some point, and this is the biggest issue right here. The Iron Bundle, the 4th Pokemon revealed now on Jonas's side. It's going to be incredibly fast. It's fast anyway, but it's got speed boosted as well by its Clarke drive, and that Dragonite is going to be, obviously, it's Flying Terror. Any Ice-type moves coming out from this opposing Iron Bundle should really clean up this game for Jonas.
Yeah, it's kind of on the brink yet for Jack. He might have to just kind of call like some really kind of hard protects at the moment, especially if the Iron Bundle wants to protect here with potentially Trick Room around. But here's the Terastallization from Jonas, so I do wonder where is this going into. It is the Iron Bundle here, so and it's the Ice-type Terror, which we don't think we ever see apart from on an Iron Bundle.
Yeah, that's true. Once you get the extra boost on something like Freeze Dry or Icy Wind, of course, it's very fast, goes for that Freeze Dry, gets an extra boost from being Terra Ice, connects onto Dragonite, and manages to win this set 2-1 for its trainer, Jonas Weigel.
Yeah, congrats to Jonas. That was a really well played set by him. Possibly around kind of like a really tricky matchup too, I'd argue too, because that Dragonite was able to. Lovely hug as well.
Love to see it.
Yeah, a really good match too as well, and both players obviously a really good sport, and it really puts the. Both players into really good stead, kind of whether you've won or lost after that.
I love to see that camaraderie, and you can see how excited Jonas is with that victory. He wants to try and go all the way, make it into that top cut, and who knows from there. I mean, the key thing I think to take away from this match is Torkoal won again.
Yes.
I feel like if you see it in team preview, it's a bit like, okay, GG. Particularly if you're on the broadcast today at any rate.
Yeah, and no, it doesn't matter what Torkoal it is either. And even this Torkoal, we didn't see it activate any photosynthesis. We didn't see it activate any chlorophylls. And we didn't even see it kind of go for any fire moves. It came and it
conquered and left.
It conquered and left, yeah, without really doing much. So it is really the lucky charm of today.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It actually, I don't think did it. It only came in that game 3, correct? And then it just came onto the field and fell asleep.
Yeah.
It took a little nap and let its teammates do all the work a little bit. But I think ultimately, the best cheerleader of that team was the Torkoal, and it's done so well throughout the tournament so far. Definitely not something I was expecting, because when we were in sunny Melbourne, it was all about rain, and now we're here in cold Germany, and it's all about the sun.
Yeah, I guess it's what people want, right? They're feeling hot, they're just naturally kind of going for the Pelipper. Someone should do a research study on that, actually, as well. That would be really interesting to know. Or someone who really wants some snow. I don't know. And you
maybe just run a bomb of snow.
Yeah. Maybe that would be cool to see. Anyway, so yeah, after that game, it really cool to see some quite two interesting teams after kind of all the Roaring Moons and Great Tusks that we kind of see. It was a little bit refreshing to kind of see these kind of newer teams kind of coming through, and especially the winning team, Jonas' team, arguably being very different, having just these kind of 3 core duos going on, and seeing how he kind of mixed those up a little bit and then got the win.
Exactly, and I think as well, Jack going for the 6, same Pokemon that Gavin ran, that obviously is a team that everyone's going to be well-versed with at this point. They're going to be on the lookout for it, and no matter what you might have done in terms of your prep going into this tournament, last week at the Oceania International Championships, that would have forced you to double-check your team and be like, right, do I have a Palafin answer? Because this team's just won. A lot of people are going to pick it up. A lot of people are probably going to be running it, so you need to make sure that you have some kind of way to deal with it, and I think that's something Jonas did expertly here, going, hey, I'm probably going to face a Palafin. What's my strategy? How am I going to adapt and be flexible against it? And he piloted that to great success.
Absolutely, exactly, and he'll probably go on pretty far as well. Looking at that, as he's got a Torkoal, and he's been on stream, so that means he's going to go even further.
That's 2 of the things you need, right? Do well, win your game on broadcast, and have a Torkoal.
Yeah, that seems to be what the key is at the moment. So if anyone's somehow able to change their team, drastically mid-tournament, which is not allowed, by the way,
not allowed.
then that could work, but unfortunately not. But I still really like Jack's team as well, and you also could see he had some very good success as well with it, being 5-1 kind of going into this as well. So, the Pelipper being such a good call, if anything, kind of based on what the Sun matchups have been today. So that's probably why he's been fairly successful. And with the slight little change up from the Baxcalibur too, with the safety goggles, it makes it so much safer into those Mugus matchups. Unfortunately, though, because you have no psychic resists, something like Indeedee Armourouge is probably the worst thing for you to go up against. So unfortunately, that, as we can see, that Armourouge did so much damage to the rest of his team.
You have to credit the Dragonite, though, going for that Ice Spinner, removing the Psychic Terrain, did at least give Jack a little bit more breathing room in that particular match. So it was nice to see that in action. But speaking of action, we've got a winner's interview for you with Jonas, so stay tuned.
Hello everybody, welcome back. We are here at the end of round 7 of the Bochum Regional Championships. My name is Ben Kiriakou, joined here on the couch by the winner of your previous round, Jonas Weigel. And Jonas, that was a crazy set. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, super intense set. I'm still super nervous, still shaking a bit. Like, this was super intense. Great opponent, great matches. I hope we put on a show.
A show was definitely something that you put on. And before we talk a little bit about the teams and other things, I want to talk to you a little bit about the match and really get into it, because game 1 started off like really back and forward between both of you. But there was that turn where Armor Rouge hit the field and just launched out loads of expanding forces. How are you feeling leading up to that point?
Yeah, like it's been a trend throughout my whole tournament. Like, a lot of the games I started in with Fluttermane and Iron Bundle, and I just prepare the field, chip a Pokemon here and there, and I have a feeling that a lot of teams aren't prepared for Indeedee Armor Rouge, especially in the back. Since I have Protect on my Armor Rouge, I can set up Trick Room more easily with my Indeedee, and so yeah, a lot of the times it's just getting those two into position, then get Trick Room up, and then I can sweep with Expanding Force, and that's exactly what happened in game 1.
And it's so powerful, isn't it? Especially the Life Orb on the Armor Rouge just does so much damage, doesn't it? It's ridiculous is definitely the word for it. and we saw why in that set. I mean, that was just an absolute cleanup at the end of game 1, especially with the Poison Terror Excalibur in the early game. That made things a little bit nicer for you, certainly. But I want to jump ahead a little bit to game 3, because that was a crazy game, because we had Psychic Terrain set up a bunch, we had Sun on the field, we had Rain on the field. Like, how did you navigate those, both a weather war and a terrain war at the same time?
Yeah, now that you say it, it was the two things at once, yeah. A lot of people have been leading Dragon Knight, what's the move? Ice Spinner, right? Yeah, Ice Spinner against me to remove the terrain. But then actually, shout out to Enosh, I played against him in round 3, and he gave me the tip, okay, bait the Ice Spinner and get your Indeedee out first turn. And that's basically what I did in game 3, so I had the chance to bring Indeedee in again and set the terrain again and then go for the Expanding Force. But Jake made a brilliant play, and he went for another Ice Spinner as I switched in my Indeedee, which I wasn't really, I didn't see this play, but when he used the move, I was like, this is clever. But yeah, somehow I managed the Sun and the terrains, and got into 1 or 2 positions where I can click my powerful moves, and that was the game-winning things, I guess.
Yeah, and it's getting that big damage on the field that your team wants to go, because it's quite fast in some areas and it's really slow in other areas. So you've got those sort of flaws in the ceiling, so to speak, as we used to call it back in the day in terms of speed tiers. But talking about the ceilings, there's something that you're quite well known for that I want to talk a little bit more about, and that's Lilycole. Because
elephant in the room.
It's not an elephant in the room, it's a bit more than that. But for those that don't know at home, Jonas won the Bremen, that was it. I knew it started with a B, but it left my mind for a moment there. Special events.
B seem to be my thing.
Right, Bochum, Bremen, we'll see. Bilbao as well, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So Jonas, you did so well with that Lilycole combination in the 2017 series. And now we're seeing your success with it yet again. So is that a good omen for you?
I hope it is. Like, I saw Lilycole in the decks and I was super happy, and I wanted to try it out throughout the season. And actually this team is, even the name of my team is Throwback, because it's literally, I try to use the same concept I used back then in 2017, as you described perfectly, with the bottom and the ceiling of the speed tiers. So the super fast mons with the Iron Bundle, the Lilligant and Sun, and then the rather slower mons with Torkoal, Armor Rouge, and Indeedee and Trick Room. So it's basically the same team as 2017, and I had great success back then, and I'm super comfortable with the Lilycole, and yeah, that's why it works, I guess.
Indeed, and after all of that, we'll see how that fares for you going into the next set. Because now, being 6-1, you've got a really good opportunity to be getting into day 2. So, fingers crossed for that. We hope to see you in day 2. But before we speak a little bit more about the tournament, I want to go back a little bit further in your VGC career. Just tell people at home, that are looking to get started at the moment into VGC, how you got started and what you did to get involved in the community.
So basically, I started in 2015, so actually a while ago. And back then, how I got into VGC was just watching a lot of content online, rewatching the regionals, watching people like Cybertron or other YouTubers. And this is how I got into the games, then played on Showdown, and then just had a look where the tournaments closest by were, and then just showed up. And yeah, that's basically it.
Well, that is a great thing to be talking about, because you can just come and have a go at these tournaments, can't you? Especially the special events. It's really easy to just, give an opportunity. So with that being said, do you have any shout outs, friends, family that you want to, call out for supporting you in your VGC career coming up to Bochum?
Of course I do. There are a lot of old school players here in Bochum. I feel like the whole German scene met here today, so I'm super happy that everyone is here, and shout outs to all the German players, and as always, shout outs to my friends at home who know very little about Mons, but I told them I'm gonna be on the stream, so shout outs to them, and shout outs to everyone who knows me and supports me.
Thank you so much, and congratulations for the 6-1 record. Fantastic result so far. And like we said, fingers crossed for the next rounds that you can make it into that all-important Day 2 Swiss. And we're going to be going to a short break now, but join us again very soon, as we'll be here for round 8 of the Bochum Regional Championships.